Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is Carl. We just finished our first month in Europe, so I want to kind of update everyone on kind of our top 10 do's and don't do's traveling in Europe. And I've got some follow-on videos also in terms of each of the locations, but this is really, if you're thinking about going to Europe, here are the things we learned on this first trip that you should really take note of if you're going to go traveling. So I've got the top 10 list here. I'm just going to run through them real quick for you. First one is just do it. We had a lot of people tell us, are you sure? It's Europe, languages, all the reasons not to do it. I did a ton of research, which I recommend you doing your research. But at the end of the day, we went and just had a blast. Secondly, everyone we met spoke English. We went to 4 different countries: Germany, Luxembourg, Belgium, and of course, England. But I was in Germany actually in the Army back in 1989 when the wall came down, and there was a big push back then for Germans to learn English. And I didn't find anyone under 40 that wasn't fluent in English. It's a requirement in their schools, and they're fluent. Also, almost every town we went to and stopped for lunch had an American menu. Now, frankly, I'm going to show you my next topic about Google Translate. I tried to use German or Google Translate on the menu just to see how it would perform. But everyone spoke English. If you find yourself lost, ask anybody under 40, do you speak English? They all say yes, and they can give you really good directions. So that was a really important point. Don't be afraid to go someplace. If they don't speak English, they do in every country. The next thing I think is really important is to go ahead and download offline Google Maps and Google Translate for the languages you want to use, and also the areas you want to navigate in Google Maps. And I'll create a video on how to do that. But what's important is in almost every area in Germany, they have 5G, but there are some areas when you get out to these smaller villages where they have 3G, 4G, and so especially with 3G, Google Maps will not keep up with your turns. You can download maps you're going to use onto your iPhone, which I did. And so when we got to those areas where it just didn't have 5G, it would switch automatically to Google Offline, and I had perfect use of all Google Maps, restaurants, everything in the data. So really important. Same is true for Google Translate. So I'm going to put another video together on how to use that, but I downloaded every language we would need. So in Luxembourg, not just French, but also they have a Luxembourg language. Of course, Germany's easy. And Brussels uses a couple different languages also. So in Belgium. So a couple different languages there. The real thing I liked about Google Translate is if you walk up to a restaurant and you say, do you want to eat here or not? I would just hold up my Google Translate, take a photograph of the menu. It would take, because I download the images offline, the language rather offline, it would give me, what the menu said. So I say, yeah, this does look good or it does not look good. Communication, a couple of important things. So I chose to use a company called Aireo, A-I-R-L-E-O, A-R-R-E-L-E-O, and you can use like an eSIM card. I downloaded that eSIM card, didn't know if it was going to work or not. It worked perfectly in every country. It never let me down. The reason you want to do that is because you can use your Google phone or your Facebook phone or WhatsApp phone and talk to people verbally or by video call. It worked really well. Now I want to say one more thing. So we did that, and by the way, I downloaded, it was a $30 for 60 days, 10 gigs, and I never used it all. I actually had a lot left when I finished. So that's plenty to use it. Again, it worked every single time. My wife, on the other hand, chose a different route. We have AT&T. AT&T offers international calling, and it's $10 a day from any country overseas up. And after you get to, I think it's 18 days or 10 days, whatever it is, they don't charge you more. So she kept her phone on the entire time, and it worked. So she could make phone calls like normal. Everything else she could do normal, download, watch TV, whatever she wanted to do. It really worked well for her. And when we got home, we did have a bill. I think it was $180 for the 60 days in addition to your regular bill. So I like using eSIM. It costs us almost nothing. But because it was our first trip, we have our kids are over there and grandkids. We want to be able to say, hey, we're lost, or can you help us? And it worked really well for us. So both those things. I watched a couple of channels before I came over, and I saw a thing called a repositioning cruise. And we tried this. So repositioning cruise means we used Cunard, and we took the repositioning cruise from New York to England. And a couple of reasons. Number one, we wanted to do it. We heard all about it. Number two, it's less expensive, a lot less expensive than flying. But the big benefit of taking the repositioning cruise for us was it's a 7-day cruise. You don't stop. You leave in New York. You end up in Southampton, England, just south of London. But what they do is almost every day at noon, they change the clocks by 1 hour. So instead of flying to Germany or Europe and all of a sudden you're trying to get over jet lag, instead, the big advantage was, since we changed our clock every hour, by the time we got to the UK, we were almost on that time zone automatically. We didn't get hurt at all. Plus, frankly, the cruise was a lot of fun. I thought it was going to be boring. The first day we went down and looked at the activities, and they had the activity director speak. And I thought, wow, there's a lot to do here on this trip. And fun things like they had different authors, different kinds of books, lectures, dances, normal stuff you see on a cruise. But I really enjoyed that Queen Mary 2 cruise across England, and we're going to do that again. Lots of people say, well, what do you do when you get to Southampton? It's very easy. The good news is on the cruise on day 3 and 4, they have immigration there, so they actually get all that done before you land. So when you land, a couple of things you can do. Number one, you can get an Uber or taxi cab. You can reserve Uber ahead of time, so when you get there, the Uber is waiting for you. We chose to use a taxi cab. It cost £10. Remember, they're no longer part of the EU, so they don't use the euro dollar. They use their regular currency. Everyone takes Visa. But we jumped out, grabbed a cab, and there, took it right to the Southampton train station. Cost us about £10, so about $15, about a 10 or 15 minute ride, I'd say. We got right to the train station, took the train right to London, so that was a complete no-brainer. The next thing I want to talk about is rail. So I'm going to do a whole video on this, but we downloaded an app called Rail Europe and Eurail. Rail Europe is, I think, the best app to use in terms of going around the country and buying different seats. Eurail is the tool we use to go under the tunnel from Brussels back to the UK. That's a high-speed rail pass. I'm going to do an old video on that too, but that was really slick. When we got to Germany, my son recommended downloading, which I did, the DB Navigator, Deutsches Bahn Navigator app. That's the app that the Germans use, and it's in English. It's very fast. You know where every train's going, what track to go on, and I think everyone knows that the local trains in Germany are always on time. As a matter of fact, we only had one train that was not on time, and it was off by 1 minute, and they apologized. So if you're going to go to Germany, everyone used the rail system. So we would go to a town, use the train to get there, and use Google Maps offline and the walking feature to get to the Christmas markets, the whatever we wanted to see. That worked every single time. Next thing I want to talk about is hotels. So we were lucky and unlucky. And so I'm going to do a whole video on this also. But we got to Brussels at one point. I really wanted to stay downtown in the mix of things. And so we chose a hotel called Hotel Mozart. Looked really cool from the ads on Priceline and Hotel.com. And it was right down the mix of everything, just walking distance, everything. The owner was awesome. The entrance was really eclectic, was all good until we got to our room. And I would say it was a 3-star experience in the room, the really uncomfortable bed, kind of things you'd see back in the 70s, I would say. But we were right downtown. It was relatively inexpensive, and it did the trick. I think what we learned is we don't want that experience again. We're going to stick with 4-star, 5-star hotels. But we wanted to try it. Now we know 3-star hotels just aren't for us. The advantage, though, was we got down there right after Christmas, and we were able to literally go downtown, walk downtown, see all the Christmas markets, see the singing, see everything you want to do, and not worry about getting in or out of town, especially that Christmas week was really tough. Next thing we did is about Uber versus rental cars. So I would recommend you Uber everywhere and don't worry about rental cars. We did rent a car, some Sixt, SIXTH. They were a great company, but they were expensive. Now, to their credit, it wasn't that expensive if you stayed in one country or did return back to the same place. We chose to rent a car in Germany and drive through Luxembourg to see, the Army's, the U.S. Army's gravesite with Patton. I'll do another video on that. I just thought of that. And all those things, and then continue on into Belgium. The reason because we really want to go to Bastogne. This is the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Bastogne, right? And so the Battle of the Bulge was there. It was phenomenal. I am going to do a video on that because they've done such a nice job on this little museum and seeing Bastogne, but it would be hard to get there without a rental car. And since we were continuing anyway to Belgium, or to Brussels rather, we just rented a car, went one way, and then stopped there for the day and continued on to Brussels. That car, I think we spent 4.5 days, was $1,000. So if you rented and took it back, it was like $40 a day, like in the US. But by dropping it off, 2 countries away, it was pretty expensive, though lesson learned. I would also say, when we did rent that car, then you're dealing with always having to park. And a couple of things are important. Number one, parking is expensive. It's hard to find in these cities we went to, Dresden for Christmas markets and others. But also we learned that although you can park over the weekend in a parking garage, the parking garages are not open on Sunday. Let me restate that. They're open in that you can get in, get your car, and get out. There's nobody manning the toll stations. And so, for example, we were in Dresden, a very large parking lot, tried to get to our car, and all the doors were locked, even the gate. And we found someone who said, hey, there's one door open, probably, a good 500 yards away from where we're at, that we could get in that door 3, kind of find our car. It's kind of spooky, probably not totally safe, especially the one in Brussels was not safe, I'd say, because it was dark. And then find your car and kind of work your way over to the gate, pay your toll, and get out. My point being is it's expensive, hard to find. Plus, when you park your car, you're always trying to get to the place. Versus if you Uber, they drop you off right where you want to go. That was especially important. We learned that lesson in Brussels, so we did not do it in England. Really important. So we got to London, did all the cool stuff in London. I'll do another video on that as well. But my point is, Ubers are everywhere. They're easy to find. You say, here's where I'm at. You don't have to go find the Uber, as you know. They find you and take you right to the next spot. So that was really important. My wife had a really important one. She said, hey, on our next trip, which we're leaving in a couple months, pack differently, kind of minimize what you're taking. So we took what we thought we needed. And plus it was winter, so we had heavier stuff, but we really didn't need all the things we needed to take. So there's always places to get your laundry done, just like in the States. Hotels do it as well. But the challenge is when you're taking trains places, you can always take your small pull-on bag like you're taking on a plane. But my wife had a large suitcase, and that was pretty tough to navigate through the city streets and hotels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that was really important. She also had a really good point about charging stations. So every place we went to, hotels, planes, trains, cars, they all had USB ports. Nobody had a USB port. They're just migrating to USB now. So whatever you're taking with you, take USB port chargers for your iPhone, iPad, etc. Everyone, even the cruise line, had that. If you don't have USBs and you're stuck to using an adapter, which we had, but the adapter only had for one unit, one appliance, versus you always have 2 USB plugs on every plug. So you get twice as much charge as the point by using USBs. USBs is normal over there. We didn't find any USB charging port in any hotel or train or cruise ship. And we stayed in some nice 5-star hotels too, Marriott's at the airports, etc. So we didn't see that at all. My wife also said on the next trip, she would either take her Kindle or her iPad, not both. She'd taken both. She's a big reader. But having both just really was one more thing you didn't need to take. Finally, our last big thing is do your research. So beforehand, I researched probably for 4 or 5 months last year. I downloaded the local apps from Italy and Germany and Luxembourg and etc. the truth is for me, for English people or English speaking people, I really focus on using TripAdvisor and TourHub. It's tourhub.co. By the way, TripAdvisor bought Viator, Viator. So if you go to TripAdvisor, it may redirect you to Viator. My point being is pick a town, London as an example, and then say, things to do in London. It'll give you a list of things to do that are all the best things. No more research needed. What I liked about it is we found that the Harry Potter studio was just about an hour from London, and you could purchase a tour from TripAdvisor and just walked right down to the middle of London, a thing called the coach station in London. The coach station is for buses. And so we bought these 2 tickets, walked 400 or 500 yards from our hotel, got on that bus, went for the whole tour at the Harry Potter studios, which was fascinating. By the way, I'm not a Harry Potter person. My wife is, but I even found it fascinating how they made these movies and all the stories behind the stories about Diagon Alley and how they did things. It was really cool. My point being is, I would say our top 3 tools we use for research are really TripAdvisor/Avio, TourHub, which is tourhub.co. They also have an app. And then, of course, I'm always going to use Priceline. Those are just the 3 that made sense to me. So those are our top 10. Look for more to come in terms of each individual country as we go through this. And if you've got any great ideas, we're traveling the rest of the EU. We're leaving in a few months. So I've got the big countries pretty nailed in terms of what I want to see. But if you got some ideas for these smaller EU countries, Liechtenstein, Slovenia, Slovakia, these smaller countries, when you go on TripAdvisor, although they find here the best things to do, I want to go to one pub, but I don't want to do the pub tour. I want to see what's really cool about those smaller countries. And there's just isn't a lot there. So if you're from one of those smaller countries, you've been to these smaller countries in the EU, please leave me a comment on what you like. And of course, if you want to continue following us and seeing these different countries, we're going to do a video country by country as we go to these this summer and next fall. And you can see what we saw and decide where you want to go. All right. Have a great day. As you can see, we're home. Really nasty here down the Gulf Shore of Texas. It's about 39 degrees and very foggy. I wish I could show you the ocean, but it's all foggy right now. Talk to you in a few days and look forward to seeing our next video. Please subscribe if you like what you're seeing. Thanks.